What do you do when the future is uncertain and there's nothing you can do but wait for it to happen? I'm Gayfesh, and today, as a special treat, I'm doing a double feature.
Yeah, because you forgot to do one last week.
Shut up. First up, we're talking For All Mankind, Season 3, Episode 8, The Sands of Ares. But before we get started, make sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Spoilers ahead. Mars ain't doing alright, y'all. Isabel and Nick were killed in the landslide. Nick was the only one who knew the accident was Danny's fault, so he may get away with it, if he and Ed can get out alive. They're in Hab 1, which is overturned in the slide and is buried 20 meters deep. The NASA team heads over to assist in rescue attempts, while Roscosmos and Helios take their engineering teams to JSC to coordinate the rescue plan. Now, I get that NASA is supposed to be the hero of the show, but it does seem a little tiring that this season it is always them saving the day. Dev at least finally proves his worth by actually coming up with a solution for digging out Hab 1 by placing bombs in a lava tube underneath the Hab so that the dirt will flow around and away from it. But that's the extent of the actual day saving, as this episode is more about everyone having long heart-to-hearts while waiting to see if the day will be saved. Karen goes to Amber because she knows what it's like to be in this position, waiting for news, and helps her make dinner. Jimmy, meanwhile, is engaging in conspiracism and doubts the story they're telling about what happened, and also confronts Karen about sleeping with Danny. By my count, that puts the people who currently know at 4. Karen, Danny, Jimmy, and Wayne. He gets her to confess that she had simply used Danny because she was mad at Ed, and Jimmy laments that everyone has used Danny his whole life. And yeah, that's absolutely true. One of the only people who ever actually had Danny's best interests at heart was Danielle when she grounded him. Ed putting him on the Helios team was him using Danny as a surrogate son for the one he lost, ignoring the obvious signs that Danny wasn't ready for this. Ellen has a heart-to-heart with Pam. Pam confesses she left Ellen because she saw the chance for Ellen to get to where she was, and she didn't want to stand in the way of that. Plus, she figured it would be a great opportunity for gay rights. Of course, Ellen hasn't done jack for gay rights, and they both know it. Hopefully, this will be the kick in the ass she needs. Ed and Danny have a tumultuous time. Ed's got a hole in his torso that Danny has to plug up with what's available in the Hab 1 airlock. Danny's convinced they're going to die, while Ed tries to get him to chin up, which just dredges up old memories of how Ed was as a father to Shane, the toxic masculinity of, come on, nut up, be a man. Danny said Shane was only ever happy when Ed was out in space and couldn't be there to stifle him. Ed doesn't take this well and tries to attack Danny over it. Danny responds in kind, which reopens the wound, and they have to quickly try to plug it up again. Then Danny confesses that Shane was only ever in trouble because Danny would instigate it and then let Shane take the blame. Danny blames himself for Shane's death because if he hadn't gotten him in trouble, Karen would have driven him to that basketball game. Ed absolves him of that responsibility. And then, Danny is just about ready to confess to Ed about sleeping with Karen when the bombs go off underneath them and free the Hab. Ed's now in the hands of a trained surgeon, and it looks like he'll have a full recovery. Alexei, however, suffered a head injury during the landslide, and while he'd been up and around to assist in the rescue attempt, he has now succumbed to a subdural hematoma. That just leaves 2 remaining cosmonauts, one of whom is the only surgeon on the planet, who carries with him a secret that will prove further disastrous. Kelly is pregnant with Alexei's child. Next up, let's talk episode 9, Coming Home, and holy crap do we have a lot to talk about! Unlike the previous episode, which was mostly interpersonal conversations while everyone waited for the news, this one is just non-stop news, especially the last 10 minutes. It's been 5 months since the accident. They've consolidated the Helios and Happy Valley bases, dug out the MSAM, and are working on refueling it to get back up to Phoenix before the next Earth return window. There's a pressing urge, of course, because Kelly has decided to keep the baby, and they want to make sure she's on the ship in full Earth gravity before she gives birth. The Mars baby turns out to be great PR, though. America isn't a monarchy, but it feels like how the British react to a royal baby. Honestly, I'm surprised there isn't more open condemnation of this interstellar harlotry. I will say, though, Ed is just a very happy, very proud grandpa to be, and Alexei being dead is probably helping that a ton, because I'm not sure he wouldn't have killed him anyway once he learned Alexei knocked his daughter up. Another complication in getting things ready is that a particular component in the docking computer burned out during the landslide. A compatible piece can be obtained from several Soviet probes on the Martian surface, but the nearest one is 1,500 kilometers away and would take months to retrieve, missing out on the return window. However, the component was sold by Roscosmos to several other space agencies, and they are able to identify a North Korean probe only 89 kilometers away that should have the part. So Danielle and the Soviet commander load up a rover with batteries and go on a day trip. And no, lol, they're not gonna ask North Korea first. They finally receive the incident report about the landslide, in which Helios determines it was user error and blames Nick for it. Everyone is pissed off about the report, figuring they're just blaming it on the dead guy instead of admitting they had a faulty product. Of course, nobody knew that it was actually Danny operating it at that point, but Danny's guilt is getting the better of him because he doesn't want Nick to take the blame for his mistake. Helios has been hemorrhaging cash in the wake of the disaster, and even though Dev has plans to build a fleet of ships to expand Mars colonization, the board wants to scrap the entire Mars project and just focus on helium-3 mining on the moon. Karen thinks they should be able to get solvents enough to keep the Mars project afloat if they sell Phoenix to NASA, a proposal that Dev refuses out of ego. But the chairman of the board approaches Karen and says that they are going to remove Dev as CEO and appoint her. That's a pretty significant job for someone who hates space. Aleida invites Bill over because she wants someone else's opinion on whether her investigation is actually worth doing. Not only is he convinced by her conspiracy board, but when she refuses to talk to the FBI about it due to them deporting her father back in season 1, Bill goes behind her back and does it anyway. The FBI tells Aleida they're going to pursue it whether she cooperates or not, and she will be forced to testify against Margot. Aleida tears down her conspiracy board in a fit of emotion, and her father tries to comfort her, but calls her by her mom's name. Oh, Aleida, you just are not having a good day. In Washington, Dick Gephardt plans to bring a bill to Congress that will give them budgetary control over NASA so they can shut down the Mars program. When Ellen says she'll veto it, he says he plans to subpoena Oval Office recordings to prove Larry perjured himself and use it as a pretext to impeach her if she doesn't sign the bill into law. Ellen and Larry discuss their options, but ultimately Larry decides to go public, announce the affair, and that he's gay. But Ellen doesn't let him sacrifice himself for her, and interrupts him during the speech to come out as gay herself. She repeals Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and gives Will Tyler a Presidential Medal of Freedom. I wonder how Dick Gephardt will react to that. It's the 90s, so homophobia is more widely prevalent, but even so, I doubt the Democratic base will support a gay witch hunt. Honestly, the episode could have ended right here, and that would have been amazing, but this show decided it was going to give us about 10 minutes of non-stop big moments from here on out. Roland gets over his homophobia and gives Will a big hug and calls him a brother. Ed finds Kelly collapsed on the ground, and the surgeon determines it's preeclampsia, and they need to get her up to Phoenix as soon as Danielle is back with a part. Well, once Danielle and the Soviet commander arrive at the North Korean site, it looks an awful lot like an old Soyuz capsule, not an unmanned probe. Danielle notices footprints in the sand, and a frickin' North Korean astronaut shows up holding a gun on them. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we've just met the first human to set foot on Mars. And considering he's not equipped for a return journey and he has the only gun on the planet, I'm thinking he's about to strong-arm his way into a seat on the M-SAM. So that's it for this week. How do you think the season finale is going to play out? Leave a comment down below.
That seems very fitting that North Korea would send a guy to die just so they could claim the first human to set foot on Mars.
Be sure to like, subscribe, ring the bell, and share the video with your friends. Subscribe to my Patreon to get shouted out in future videos. Check out my Bandcamp for banging tunes, including all the tracks you heard in this video. Follow me on Twitter at GayestFesh, and don't forget to check out my podcast, The Rest of Both Worlds, where I go through Star Trek The Next Generation with a friend who's never seen it. Thank you to all my patrons, with a special shout out to Piftle Cakes and Renee Vorbeck. Your support is greatly appreciated. See you all in the next video.